you say that you love me? Why'd you say that you're leaving?
Just like it, yeah. weed in it. Now digging. Oh dear. Oh. So I must be hiding under these stones somewhere. Oh, I can put some slow pellets down. Oh, there's a snail there.
Here we've got two diesel locos. We've got number 9 from, which is a Welsh Highland loco, which is, was originally built for Queensland Sugar Railways. It's been restored over at Dinas for the last couple of years, but it's here now at the moment having a replacement air compressor because the compressor that was on it failed in service, literally fell apart, so it's having a new compressor fitted. Okay, so this is the new air compressor that's been fitted. There's a pulley to go on here and it'll be driven off the front of the engine, the crankshaft pulley of the engine. I say the original, well, we replaced the original unit with an off-the-shelf engine compressor in its rebuild, but that hasn't done very well and it's disintegrated. So we're hoping that this will sort out the problem. But obviously air is essential on the loco for the brakes, changing gear, and various other functions, so we can't do without an air compressor on the loco. Yeah, it's got an 8-cylinder Gardner engine, which we think is certainly the type of engine that it was originally built with, and self-changing gears, transmission in the middle, and final drive forward-reverse box at the back. It's a larger, more heavy-duty version of the locos that we have rebuilt to be the Harlech Castle and the Criccieth Castle. And although it doesn't have a high top speed, it only does about 15 miles an hour. It's ideal for works trains on the Welsh Highlands. You can see number 9's quite tall, and it only fits the Welsh Highland route, not the FR line. Harold here, on the other hand, can go anywhere, very slowly though. It's just been restored by a group of our volunteers, having been out of service for some time with a failed clutch. but it's had a new clutch made and fitted, and it's had a general overhaul and a repaint, and it's now looking very smart, and it should be the star of the show at the forthcoming Hunslet 125 Gala. Harold here was built for working in a sewage works somewhere near Leeds, I think, and it's named Harold after the gentleman that drove it when it was at the sewage works, and it's been restored to the sort of green colour that it used to have when it first came to us, but of course when it first arrived it was this green colour, but it was also covered in material from the sewage works as well, so the loco earned a bit of a nickname because of that, as you can imagine. Well, I can say it's called Chitty the Shunter, if you want to know. Okay, so this is a new underframe we're building for a Linton and Barnstaple railway carriage. It's a heritage carriage that the railway themselves are doing the bodywork, I think using some original parts that they've recovered, but we're doing the underframe and the bogies, and we've done all the previous ones that they have in service. At the moment this underframe is upside down, which is easier to work on while we're building it. You can see things like the bogie centres there that locates the bogie, and the bearer pads, that the weight is transferred from the bogie to the underframe. You can see over here a vacuum brake cylinder. There's two of these. The cylinders we've made ourselves at Boston Lodge from original drawings. We've made the patterns and recreated the cylinders, so we're quite pleased with those. So they're vacuum brake cylinders, which the Linton and Barnstaple Railway now use, same as the Festinial Railway. The earlier underframes we built for them were dual braked, air and vacuum, but they've decided that they prefer the vacuum braking, and so they don't want the air brake fitting to any subsequent ones, so we're leaving that off. So here we've got the bogies under construction for the Linton and Barnstaple Railway underframe we were looking at before. It's the standard FR carriage bogie design that is used under most of the modern FR carriages. It's got roller bearing wheel sets, quite a few other modern improvements, rubber suspension components, and it uses plastic bushes in the brake gear, so it's been evolved to be quite a low maintenance bogie. As I say, it's used under most of the FR carriages and under all the Linton and Barnstaple carriages that we've built for them. You can see down here there's new wheel sets for these bogies that have been assembled here. We've got the wheels cast outside at a foundry. But all the machining of the wheels and axles has been done here, and also the roller bearing axle boxes, which this is, and these are the rubber suspension units that give the primary suspension of the bogie. Right, so we've got over here now the parts of the cradle frame for the new James Spooner double fairley loco. It's not particularly advanced much just lately, these parts. However, the boiler is being worked on off-site by a welding subcontractor, and he's getting on quite well with the new boiler for the loco. And there's a lot of other parts been arriving to build bits and pieces that will go onto the cradle, and other bits and pieces that will go onto the boiler. So we've got regulator valve castings have arrived, ready for machining. The rubber bogey centre secondary suspension that goes in here, that they've arrived. So there's a lot of work going on, even though at the moment the cradle itself is still in pieces. And so this is the bed plate of the engine for the Kerr Stewart diesel 4415. The engine had suffered some big damage in this area here, which we sent away, and it's been cast iron welded. This area has been completely reconstructed. And now this face has been remachined by one of our machinists on the borer in the machine shop. Similarly with the bottom of the block which bolts to this, that's been machined flat again. So the next stage will be to get this line bored through these areas here where the bearings sit, where the crankshaft operates, and of course it still needs a replacement crankshaft, which hopefully is going to be made by an outside contractor now that's been found. Yeah, this is the 4-cylinder Caterpillar engine from the Harlech Castle, and the transmission, which is all nice and shiny and newly painted. As you can see, this has been away to the manufacturer for a rebuild. The loco failed in service with the drive plates failed between the engine and transmission, so we've sent it away for a new one, and the transmission's been overhauled at the same time. The other thing that we're going to do whilst this is out of the loco, there's a spare power takeoff position here. We're going to fit a hydraulic pump to that, which will drive the vacuum brake exhauster that we're going to fit to the loco. Harlech Castle's not had vacuum brakes before. It's not needed it because most of the FR engineering trains have been unfitted trains, i.e. only braked by hand brakes. But we're trying to move to a situation where all the regular use engineering trains are vacuum fitted, which is safer and easier to use. Right, so this is our track temping machine, known as the KMX, which we acquired from a French coal mine that closed some years ago, back in the late 1990s, I think. It was made redundant because the coal mine was closing. It was brought up from underground in two pieces. You see the whole machine was split in the middle. We bought it as a meter gauge unit, and we re-gauged it here at Boston Lodge to 2-foot gauge, and it's proved a very useful machine. Basically its job is to pack ballast under the sleepers in a controlled manner so that the track is firm and level. the way it does that is that these rollers down here can grab the rails with hydraulic rams, so the machine can physically lift and align the rails with reference to a cord that's stretched down the middle of the machine as a datum. And these tools here, which are called the tines, they're pushed into the ballast either side of a sleeper, and they squash the ballast underneath the sleeper. So the process basically, as I say, pushes ballast firmly under the sleepers to make a level and aligned track. So as you can imagine, it's quite a complex machine. There's quite a bit of electronics on it, and it's not the easiest machine to use, but it can do, when it's working properly, it can do a lot of work compared to men with picks or men with shovels. And so it's, in big relaying jobs, it's quite invaluable. However, it does take quite a bit of maintenance, and it's needed quite a bit of repairs over the years. So it's an expensive but very useful machine. The original design, it was produced by a company called F&WHR, who are, I think, the French division of Placer, which you may have heard of as one of the big track machine companies. So anyway, well, yes, Welsh Pony. Quite a few people have been asking, when's it going to be finished? Well, I'm not quite sure when it's going to be finished at the moment, but we're hoping to have that back in the works quite soon to continue putting that together. The next steps will be to, probably to assemble the valve gear, which may mean taking the boiler out temporarily. And then we can start to assemble the outer frames, which are basically the original parts that just need to be cleaned up and put back together. That's the framing round the outside that supports the saddle tank and up to the front buffer beam, which we'll use the original of, and also the rear frames. They can go back on after some repair, and then it's basically a job of assembling the rest of the loco. The saddle tank that's been restored can go on, the cab, bit of plumbing work, and it'll be ready to go. Well, painting of course to do, but so we're hoping to have a gap that can be done in sometime this summer. So yeah, that's one of the things we're going to be working on in the near future. The other loco that has not been seen for a little while, but not forgotten, is the Conway Castle, which we had quite a lot of work done by a gang of volunteers earlier this year, known as the Reynolds gang. They put together the rebuilt gearbox and final drive for that. So the next stage is going to be to refit the engine and give it some new bodywork. We're going to rebuild the bodywork in a more original style, because the 1980s rebuild that the Conway Castle had to make it a passenger diesel isn't now it's not really appropriate for what we wanted to do. We need it to be a reliable shunting and works diesel. So we're going to make it something more like the Upnor Castle. Although we've got a bit of design work to do on that before that's done.